Had to pop out on them with the goods in the topo box getting active. And little boy's getting disrespectful. Had to kick game straight out the anatomical toe box. Alright man, today we are going to do something a little bit different. We're not talking shoes, we are talking training. And we are talking the best marathon training plans, the best marathon training books, straight from the source. All of the books in this box, with the exception of one, I have read cover to cover. I've read a lot of books. I've read a lot of books in my life actually. I can read a book in like 2 or 3 days. That's one of my skills. Right now, let me show you what I'm reading right now. I just brought down a ton of books. If you don't like books, don't watch this video. This is what I'm reading right now. It's one of the densest written books. I can't believe I've never read it. I've probably read excerpts. Walden by Thoreau. A lot of these other YouTubers out there who are just doing everything for a bag should probably read Walden. Not gonna get into it. Anyway, there are 5 awesome running books that I have read cover to cover with different takes on the philosophy of marathon training, with different takes on the little things we can do, the way we can structure workouts, the way that we can structure our weeks, that I wanted to chat through today. So we will start, the way I want to run this video is from the most beginner-friendly marathon training plans and books all the way up to the most advanced. So I'm going to recommend a book for every type of runner based on where you are at in your running journey, from 0 all the way up to 120, 130, 140 miles per week if that's where you are right now. So with that, let us start with our first book of the day, first marathon training plan. This is actually the exception book that I have not read cover to cover. This is the one book. We're gonna have one of those weird sunlight days. This is the one book. It is Marathon You Can Do It by Jeff Galloway. You do not need to get this exact book, but the reason I'm recommending this book for complete beginners is because Galloway uses a run-walk approach. So he is one of the OG American hobby jogger coaches who harnessed the running and jogging boom and actually helped pioneer the running and jogging boom and make running more accessible to a bunch of people. He's an OG in the game, and his style of marathon training at the time where not too many people were running marathons at all was, hey, this does not need to be a terrible, painful thing where you run your first marathon, you go out, run hard for 2 hours and die for the next 2.5 hours limping your way to the finish. No, you can mix in running with walking to extend the time you're getting on feet and also to make it a little bit easier to hit longer runs. So his philosophy is all based on chunking up runs, lowering the intensity, similar to how we might think about zone 2 today, but a little bit different in that it's not about heart rate, it's not about effort, it's about literally stopping to walk during runs to extend the time you get on feet. So you don't need to get this exact book, but I would encourage you, if you are a complete beginner starting from 0, to consider doing a run-walk approach if you have an ambitious goal to complete your first marathon within 6 months, within a year. If you're starting from nothing, you don't have much of an athletic background whatsoever, maybe you're coming from 5-10 years of being sedentary after college or after being in a tough time in your career and you're now looking to running. If you really want to do that marathon, I would suggest doing a half marathon or a shorter distance first and using one of the next training plans. But if you're set on doing that marathon, whether it's for your personal goals or to raise money for charity, the Galloway approach or the run-walk approach is great. So this is the only book of these I have not read cover to cover. I've read the first few chapters, I've skimmed through the training plans, and Charlie has also read most of this. So I feel comfortable recommending it also because Galloway is an OG in the game. And also I recommend the run-walk approach in general if you are starting from scratch. So next up, now we're gonna get into I don't know why I led with the book that I did not read cover to cover, because everything else I've read cover to cover. Next up though, anyway, we are gonna go into our friend Higdon. This is Hal Higdon. You know what I love about Hal Higdon and Jack Daniels, who we'll get to in a second? These guys are 93, 94 years old, and they're still kicking. They're still kicking. That is the power of running. It keeps us healthy, and that's my goal with running. I want to be healthy and kicking when I'm 93, 94 years old. So the Higdon plans, This book is called, what is it called? Marathon, the Ultimate Training Guide. I'll put all the links to it below. The thing is, I don't know what these books are called because they all just say Marathon huge in front. If you just search Marathon Hal Higdon, this is the book you need. I'll put the links below. I don't even think I have affiliate links to these, but just to make it easier for you to find the books. Higdon, his approach, similar to Galloway, is all about making it easier, more accessible for runners. He has the gold standard, or one of the gold standards in training plans. And if you're already following something like the Nike Run Club app or one of the apps, it's likely that their plans are very similar to what you're gonna get out of the Higdon book. I personally like reading. I like having the hard copy in my hands. There's also so many good anecdotes, stories. Higdon built up a big Facebook community, so he interviews a bunch of the people in his hobby jogger community to give some insights, very similar to what we have on the Supwell app. By the way, I'm so bad at this. I never talk about the Supwell app, but if you clicked on this video and you're interested in training topics, consider signing up for the Supwell app. It's the app that I started. It's the best hobby jogger community out there right now. It's a place for you to connect with other runners, ask questions about your training, ask questions about training plans. You could DM me with any questions, and cherry on top, you can buy, sell, and trade gently used running shoes. We have the best inventory in the game. So that was the obligatory Supwell app plug. $1 a month. My friend Curiosity said it better than I could. The $1 a month is to keep out the trolls, essentially. Anyone who's gonna complain about a $1 a month paywall, I don't want you in there. It's not a democracy. It's a benevolent dictatorship. And I don't want you in there if you're gonna be complaining about a $1 a month paywall, so that we don't have to take advertiser money and we can stay independent. The world's got to, you gotta sell something to make a living in this capitalist society. So I'm selling a $1 a month subscription on top of my 9-to-5 job that I'm still doing right now, but I'm selling the $1 subscription so that I don't have to sell you some random headphones from China out here talking like they're gonna change your life. I could do that and get some $4,000 check from Jingbo, but I'm not going to do. You know how many people are up in my emails asking me if I want to do sponsorships? And I say no, because I'm not going to be out here trying to sell you a dream on some bogus products. $1 a month. If you want to up your best, that's what the Supwell app is about. Read a dang book. This video is for people who want to read a dang book, and the Supwell app is for people who want to read a dang book. I really love how he weaves in, and with all these books, it's not just about the training plans. That's why I'm recommending them for different types of runners. You can do whatever you want. You can go off script with the training plans, but having a little bit of the structure in there, something to go from. If you flip to, so all the books, they'll have the training plans in the back. This has the half marathon plans too. Oh my gosh, we're doing this again. And you can see he does break out all of the different runs for each day of the week. What I would recommend for most of these books is using them as a guide, using the principles to help structure your training. That's what I do. I'll get into it more when we talk about the Daniels book, which I follow, but all of these books have great bones. They have the philosophy, they have, most of them talk about the science of running, why we run a lot of miles. They'll talk about why we take rest days, the different intensities, why we run tempo runs, why we do lactate threshold, why we work at race pace. They all address it and approach it in a little bit of a different way. They all have the structure of the workouts. If you can get to a point where you use this as a guide and you use the principles to inform your training, you use the mileage levels in here to inform how you might structure a week, but then go off script when you're not feeling it or when you know you can add in a little bit more. That's how I like to approach it. But this one is gonna be great if you've maybe run a half marathon before, maybe you've run a 5K before, or maybe it's your first marathon, but you have a little bit of a background in running. If you're not starting from absolute zero, this is a great plan. Or if you are starting from absolute zero, but you feel comfortable running, you don't need to do run walk, but you do want to take it a little bit easier than some of these other plans I'll recommend in a sec. That's what Higdon is great for. Also, this is a great, if you want a new running book to read, I would highly recommend this no matter where you are in your journey because it's well written. He was a writer for Runner's World for many years, very accessible, very approachable, straightforward language, which I love. You could read this in a week or a weekend. You can rip right through it, and then the training plans are there as well. So a great beginner training book and a great book for anyone who wants to add something new to their running collection. All right, next up here, now we are going into the middle. So I told you I had 5 books. This is the middle book. This is the running book and the training book that I recommend for most people. This is what I used for my half marathon PR last year. It is the Hanson's Marathon Plan. So if you take a look at the Higdon book, and so Galloway Run Walk, there's not going to be much of structured workouts in there. It's more going to be about time on feet, which is what I recommend most beginners to do. And same thing in Higdon. He does have some workouts for some of the levels, but it's not too challenging. Let me try to find a... Yeah, so he does have some things in here for the advanced marathon plan in Higdon, where you do 35-minute tempo, 5 by 800 meter repeats, 8 miles at race pace with a 16-mile long run. Some of the advanced plans in Higdon start to work up to that, but what Higdon is great for is ramping up your running and getting a little bit more of a sense of what it looks like to structure a week of training around a goal. Because there's a lot of us out here who start running as not even a hobby, as a way to stay healthy, get our cardio in, break up our weeks. Maybe we're big lifters and we're doing that. I'm laughing because this is me, right? I used to be a big lifter, and then I would go for a jog. And then Charlie and I decided we wanted to do a 5K at the Whitewater Center here in Charlotte in 2020. We decided this in January or February 2020, and then you guys know what happened. That 5K was canceled because it was in March 2020. And then we ended up just sticking with running. But once you get some of the basics down of structured training, or if you already have some of the basics and fundamentals down, for example, if I were starting from scratch all over again with my athletic background, having played lacrosse, having played basketball, lifting for 10, 15 years, being comfortable with moving my body, I would start with Hanson's. This is the best marathon training plan for most people. This is the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4 of marathon training plans, or the let's say Saucony Endorphin Pro 3 or Adidas Adios Pro 3. This is the sweet spot. There's lots of different mileage levels in here, but why I love it is because it's still simple, and that it has those 3 SOS. They call them SOS workouts, or I think it's something of substance workouts. Now I'm forgetting what SOS stands for. This is why I don't use acronyms. But the SOS workouts, I think it's called something of substance. Basically any run where you're gonna be adding in a little bit more intensity, they do 3 of them per week. The way I like to think about it in this plan is on Tuesday, you go faster than race pace. Thursday, you go race pace. And then on the weekends, you do your long run. It's a nice, simple, clean way to structure a week of training. Of course, there's some different spins on it, and the classic notable thing about the Hanson's plan is that it only puts you up to 16 miles for the long run, but you can go longer if you want. But I love the structure of this plan. It's the right amount of intensity and rest for most people who are coming from some sort of an athletic background. So if you've already been running for a few years, if you have a background in sports and athletics, if you're not coming from a completely sedentary lifestyle, if you've run a few races, this is the plan that I would pick. Again, this book is straightforward, it's simple. It also places an emphasis a little bit more on pushing it, and they talk about cumulative fatigue, and he breaks down all the science topics. Luke Humphrey wrote this book, and it's the Hanson's system. Hanson's Brooks Distance Project is the running team. Des Linden was part of it. There's a bunch of American athletes who are part of it who've gone on to have notable careers. This is the tipping point and the difference between Higdon and Hanson. Higdon is a little bit more, let's just get you to the finish line in one piece. Hanson's is, let's get you halfway through training in one piece, start breaking you down to build you back up so you can run hard for that marathon. So if you are excited about the idea of a challenge in your first or second marathon, maybe you've run one marathon, didn't do much of structure, or did run walk, I would take Hanson's. Hanson's has informed a lot of my philosophy in the way that I approach running, the way I think about race pace, the way I think about running longer, faster than race pace, the way I think about the long run. A lot of that has come from Hanson's and a few of these other books that I'll highlight here in a second. This is probably my favorite structured training book. So this is one I recommend for most people. Next up, we are going to move up in the ladder to Fitzinger Advanced Marathoning. It's right in the title, Advanced Marathoning. So most people could do Hansons. You could run a sub 230 on Hansons. You could run a sub 220 on Hansons. Fitzinger starts adding in a little bit more complexity, and they have specific plans for higher mileage levels that also program out each day of the week. So if you're the type of person who wants to have a very clear understanding of what is coming, and you don't like to deviate from the script, and you want everything to be broken down clearly and to follow that plan, if you think in spreadsheets, I would recommend Fitzinger. This does a lot of the work for you. I think if you've run a few marathons, maybe you've run 2, 3, 4 marathons on different plans, how to coach, not how to coach, you're looking for some more structure, you're looking for something to take you to the next level, the Fitzinger Advanced Marathoning Plan is good. I have never followed a full cycle of this myself because the structure is just too much for me, and I don't love the way that they break out workouts here. So let's look at this. Yeah, this is one I was gonna follow. It just has a lot of detail around you should be running this in the morning with the double days. But if you have, I don't like a lot of detail. I like to control the details and build it up myself. But if you have a lot of other things going on in your life and you want to be told just run this at this time, run this at this time, in place of a coach, this would be good. This is good for the type of person who wants to just be told exactly what to do. And difference between these two plans, mileage levels. So if you're now pushing up to 60, 70, 80 miles per week, that's where you might want a little bit more guidance on how to break out that mileage and how to structure a week of training with appropriate rest. And that's what a book like Advanced Marathoning, that's what a book like Advanced Marathoning is going to do for you versus the Hanson's book, which doesn't detail it as much. When you start getting in that gray zone where we're not quite hitting, and I'm in this zone right now, I'm not quite hitting elite mileage level of 120 plus consistently, and I'm not hitting elite level workouts, but I am running more than the typical 40, 50, 60 marathon training plan that you might find in Higdon or Hanson. So this is one step above in terms of the complexity. I sometimes find that the training plans in here have unnecessary complexity, and that's the thing that I love about Hanson's. But if you want the extra detail, if you want the extra support, if you're a type A type of person who's going to be running 80 miles per week and wants extreme clarity on how to structure marathon training, that's the Advanced Marathoning here. I feel like I came off a little bit negative on this book. I'm not negative. I actually really like this book. The writing is not as approachable and accessible as the Hanson's and Higdon's, but it's a solid book. The training concepts in here are great as well. They break down all the training philosophies as well, and the workouts are solid. I also do like that they have the midweek longer run programmed in here too. So they'll have something like a 15-mile medium long run in here. So if you're approaching that higher mileage level and you want guidance around how to do that, definitely check out Fitzinger. All right, last book here, thinking about structured training. Before I get into some of my other running book recommendations that can inform our philosophy, this is the last marathon training specific book I will recommend. This is the book that I have been following for my last 2 cycles. The Daniels Running Formula, or as I like to call it, the Book of Daniels. Let me just put some respect on Jack Daniels' name for a second. This guy's a legend in the game. He is a pioneer. V. The reason I love Daniels, it's not just because of the workouts, it's because the focus on pace in the way that he leads you to your paces is awesome. He pioneered race pace calculators, and through his V. system, so what that is say you run a 20-minute 5K. You plug that in and he will tell you, okay, you ran a 20-minute 5K, this is the level of marathon pace you should be training at. This is where you should be training lactate threshold. The reason I love it is because it exposes your weaknesses as a runner. if you can't run that marathon pace or 10 to 15 seconds off of it, you clearly need to extend your endurance. And if you're lagging, say you run that 20-minute 5K, and let me fire this up and see what you can do. I've dog-eared all the pages in here that I just always come back to, and these VDOT tables are one of them. So you can see this is my last VDOT I circled here, 62. So let's see, if you ran a 15-minute 5K, oh, he has it as 5,000 meters, or 20-minute 5K, that's a 49 VDOT. That says your marathon would be a 3:14. And then you flip over here, oh, look at this. My mom made me all these bookmarks for my birthday. But you flip over to here, and then you say, okay, we're a 49 VDOT. You might need to just buy this book yourself because you can barely see it. And look, I've tattooed this dang book everywhere. 49 VDOT, okay, that puts our relaxed running paces and long run pace at 8:05 to 9:06. And then we put our threshold pace at 6:56. We should be running 1,200 meter intervals at 4:45. It breaks down everything around pace. So not only is it gonna give you the structure of the workouts, the VDOT system is great. Pace don't lie. Pace don't lie. It's hot out here, and this got me hot because there's a lot of metrics we can look at, talk about, think about: heart rate, HRV. I said there's a lot of metrics, I can only think of two. Pace does not lie. Our entire goal of structured training, when we're shifting from that mindset of I want to run for general fitness to I want to run to achieve a time-based goal, and now I'm speaking in the darkness. Our entire mindset is I want to run X pace for X distance. If it's a sub-3 marathon, I need to be running 6:52 or faster per mile for 26.2 miles. It doesn't matter what my dang heart rate is. It doesn't matter what the dang temperature is. It doesn't matter what the dang humidity is. If I have that goal, no matter the conditions, no matter the elevation gain, that's my goal, to run sub-3. Everything else is noise. That's what this system is so good at. It strips out all the noise. Pace don't lie. That's why I love this system. So the training in here, it can get a little bit complex, and some of the workouts you're gonna be running different pace levels. Or different paces in the same workout. It's not the most simple, straightforward, the actual workouts, but the way that he gets to the workouts, the way that he leads you to the workouts, and the guidance around the paces is great. So what I've actually done in the past is combine the VDOT paces from Daniels with the marathon training, or with the half marathon training, whatever race it is, from Hansen's. Using VDOT for this with the structure of this. That's one of the best ways to do it. If you want a simple training system, use Hansen's and then use Daniels just for the VDOT. And also reading the Daniels book, especially if you are a hobby jogger not coming into this with a cross country or track background. Reading this was super helpful for me to understand some of the principles, not just the scientific part of running, but the racing mindset, the competitive mindset, the way that people structure workouts more in the track world. It was interesting and helpful for me. He's definitely coming from a not hobby jogger background. Hansen's is coming from, we are adapting the elite methods to hobby joggers. This is adapting the elite method for serious runners. And this is, I want you to smile as the hobby jogger at the end of the finish line. Nothing, no shame in that game. Definitely a little bit serious, good structure, but the pace guidance in here is great. So who I would recommend this for in terms of actually following the training plans? If you are now starting to run 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 plus miles per week, let's say 60 plus miles per week, this is where I'd start considering using Daniels. And again, you can use any of these plans at any level of running. It's just which is going to be most optimal. Think about it like a car. If I'm buying a car to drive on a backcountry road specifically, am I gonna buy a Toyota Camry? Probably not. I might buy a Toyota 4Runner. In the same vein, if you just need a car to take your dog to the dog park, getting the big old SUV is probably gonna be a little bit overkill. So that's my whole guidance and philosophy around these plans. We should be doing only as much and introducing only as much complexity as is needed to get to the next level. And for me and my running right now, I've been running for 4 to 5 years. The complexity in the Daniels system and the Fitzinger system, I don't even need to be doing that. What I've found has been most effective for my running, consistency, being able to stay healthy and get to a place where I can run every day. That's gonna be huge. If you are not running every day, getting to a place where you can run every day, that is the number one thing you can do. If you're running, once you're there, running consistently 2-hour long runs every week or nearly every week, that will do it. And then consistent intensity. So 1 or 2 runs per week where you're running 20 to 30 minutes hard. Those are the simple things that we can do. And again, can you do an 8 by 1,000 meter repeat workout? Can you go to the track and blast some 400s? Will those help you? Yes and yes. Do you need to do that level of intensity and add in all of the complexity? No, you can get just as much of a benefit like I have by running hard in your neighborhood for 20 minutes. So my philosophy is we only need to be doing as much as necessary to get to that next level. It's the machine gun and the ant, right? Using something like Daniels at 30 to 40 miles per week for first marathon, if we don't have a big running background, it might get you to the finish line, but it's probably just gonna introduce way more of a headache than needed. That's why I'd go for Hanson. But if you've been running for years and you've done the race pace tempos consistently, you've done 1 day of speed work at the track consistently, that's where it might make sense to introduce new stimuli, like doing 5K pace and half marathon pace in the same workout to get new adaptations. That's what running is. Progressively bigger stimuli, progressive overload, more intensity over time so that the body adapts and we get faster. But if we're not running every day or 4 or 5 times a week, low-hanging fruit, as they say. Pick those juicy peaches. Man, I've been out here yapping. This was supposed to be a short video. The camera came off right as I was saying. Pick the juicy peaches and eat them every day of the week. Plant more seeds. Grow those ripe fruits. And then start running 2 hours on their peach behinds every weekend. So those are the simple things we can do to get better as runners. Now let me highlight a few of the other running books that I recommend. So I have 4 here. I'm just hit these at pace. Bang, Cerruti, legendary Australian running coach. If you want some running motivation, he's almost like a David Goggins mixed with Scott Jurek type of vibe. If you want some running motivation to run hard, to learn how one of the great distance coaches came up with his philosophy and applied it, I would check out the Cerruti book. This one is called How to Become a Champion Athletics. This is an interesting book I read recently. Running with Kenyans by Ataranand Find. So the title, a little bit odd, yes. The content is great, and he's a great writer. He takes us on the journey with him as he decides to move his family from the UK to Kenya, and there is a little bit of that. Hey, FedEx pulling through. Weird socio-economic vibes coming from the book, but just getting that boots on the ground experience in the Kenyan running culture is cool. And I think he does a decent job at ingraining himself and being part of it without having it be too... Just check it out yourself. Brad Hudson, Run Faster. This is another great book, Training Philosophy. His whole idea is we should be our own coaches, no matter if we even have a coach. But his whole philosophy is called adaptive running. So we adapt our running based on how we're feeling. It's a lot of what I talk about, training by feel. So the philosophies in here are great. I haven't dug too deep into the actual training plan, but I like this book more for the general approach to running. So check this one out. And then this is the most recent book I have read, Tales of the Times by Bob Hodge. This is a cool one because it's just one story of a runner, and he tells his life story through running, and he's born and raised in the same town or city that I'm from, Lowell, Massachusetts. My mom actually just recently gave me this book, and look at this. He still lives in Lowell. Yeah, he still lives in Lowell, where my mom lives, so he signed the book for me. He said, "Hobby jogger you want." That's kind of cool. So yeah, it's right in the title, Tales of the Times. He tells this story about being in the greater Boston area when running was growing before the era of professionalization, and he was signed by New Balance and Reebok at a point, but it wasn't the same level as it is today, where you can make a full-time living off of running. He calls himself something like a vagrant runner. I forget the exact term he uses, but it's a cool sociological look at that community at the time. He also ran a lot with Bill Rogers. Bill Rogers was in the same track club as him. So if you want to hear the story about a professional competitive runner before the days of Instagram, this would be a great book. So, oh, the other last book I didn't bring out here, I actually don't know where it is. Lydiard, Run to the Top. So if you have not read any Arthur Lydiard, I highly recommend it. A lot of my philosophy around high mileage comes from Lydiard. He talks about the importance of increasing mileage, the importance of running a lot of steady aerobic mileage, the importance of the aerobic system. Check out Lydiard. And then this is a fun one that I picked out. It is not running, but I've also been reading this occasionally. It's been on my nightstand, the Calvin and Hobbes Sunday Pages by Bill Watterson. And another guy, this is a guy who had a clear vision about how he wanted to do things creatively, and he saw it through. So this is a cool book as well. I'm sure we have some fellow Calvin and Hobbes fans out there, but oh, Calvin and Hobbes down. Man, Topo box heavy. Low boy's talking about strength training. Had to pop out on him with the Topo box, spitting knowledge. It's a box full of facts. All right, so quick recap before we depart of these top 5 books here, the best marathon training plans for every type of runner. So if you are a complete beginner from scratch, I highly recommend starting with a run-walk program to increase your time on feet. Galloway is a great example of that. I'm sure there are also newer, more updated examples. One of the odd things I didn't actually say about this Galloway book is that the long runs in here are really long. He recommends people to do super long runs. The research has now shown that's probably not the best thing to do physically, but psychologically it could be helpful. And if you are doing run walk, it's a little bit easier on the body. So Galloway marathon, you can do it. And on the back, look, the Every Person's Guide to Running a Marathon, OG hobby jogger savant guru. Shout out to Jeff Galloway putting in work. Next, moving up in complexity and mileage, Marathon, The Ultimate Training Guide by Hal Higdon. So this is the book if you've run maybe a few races before, maybe you've run a marathon before but didn't do structured training. If you want your first structured training plan with some workouts, with some intensity, I would recommend the Higdon book here. I always get Higdon and Hansen mixed up. Next, we have the Hansen's book. This is the book that I recommend for most people. This has those 3 workouts per week: faster than race pace Tuesday, race pace on Thursday, long runs on Saturday. It's simple, it's clean, it's straightforward, has just the right amount of complexity. If you have some sort of athletic background or you're looking to PR, take your game to the next level, you've run a little bit, you've run a few races and you want to give it a go at pushing yourself, this is the book. This is the book to start pushing yourself. Next up, if you consider yourself advanced and you want someone to tell you that you're advanced, I would suggest Fitzinger. Man, shout out to Pete Fitzinger, man. This is a good book. I don't, just talking through this book, I think this is my problem with this book. Asics Nova Blast 4, Nike Alpha Fly 3, New Balance SC Trainer V3. This is my issue with the marathon book. It's good, but it's for the type of person who wants everything laid out for them. If you like having one dedicated shoe for each day of the week and you plan out every run on each Sunday, I'm not saying that's bad. You can do things however you want. This is going to be the book for you. It just has a little bit too much complexity in the training plans for my preference without giving the flexibility that the Daniels plan has. So this is the ultimate marathon training book. Once we're getting up to super high mileage levels, once we want or need a little bit more complexity in our running, and also the training tables, the VDOT tables in this are great. So Daniels, this is not the book I recommend for most people to follow in terms of training system. I recommend everyone to read this. I also recommend everyone to read all of these. As my Latin teacher, Dr. Reyes, said, you read the good books and the bad, and none of these are bad books. These are all good books that I picked out. But no matter your level, you should probably read all these books just to educate yourself and have an understanding of how some of the greats apply the best practices and what their unique little twists are on the best practices. So Daniels, this is awesome once we're reaching up at higher mileage levels. I personally follow the 2Q plans. He gives you 2 workout sessions per week. That's the difference with Hanson's. Hanson's has 3 workouts per week. This has 2, and one of those workouts is a long run. And here's the thing. If we've never done 2-hour long runs before, I would focus on just getting up to that time on feet, being comfortable with running consistent 2-hour long runs before introducing the complexity in that's gonna be in Daniels. That's why I recommend Hanson's for most people. Because if we've never run 16 or 20 miles before and we're already thinking about doing a bunch of crazy half marathon pace inside that, it's just, it doesn't set us up for success. So I only came to the Daniels stuff after I'd done Hanson's, after I'd run 119 half marathon, after I'd come back around to the marathon after taking a little bit of a break in 2023. But this is great if you want a PR, if you want to push yourself, or if you have a big running background in track and cross country, or with a run club running competitively. This is awesome, and anyone can use the VDOT tables in here. So shout out Daniels, shout out Hanson, shout out Fitzinger, shout out Higdon, shout out Galloway, and shout out Lydiard and Cerruti and all those other books we pulled out. Supwell app $1 a month. I'll be back tomorrow with another video.